Peace, peace, peace. It's Raheem Allah with Wise the Dome TV. And I just created a little presentation. It's nothing big, but it's called Hoodoo in the American South, presented by Raheem Allah. And reason what inspired me to build on it was my brother Malik Camara and Carlos Montez had a presentation about Africanisms in America. And being from the South, I wanted to kind of just pinpoint on this aspect of it. And I'll link their presentation, which is real dope, in the comments. But here we go. Hoodoo. Hoodoo is an ethnogenesis of spiritual practices, traditions, and beliefs created by African slaves in North America that were held in secret from slaveholders. Hoodoo evolved from various traditional African religions and practices, and in the American South, uh, incorporated various elements of indigenous botanical knowledge. So ethnogenesis just means it became distinct on its own. It became its own tradition, and due to the fact that whenever we were kidnapped from West Africa, there were multiple tribes of different nations and different traditions. And so whenever we all got here into one place, we began to amalgamate and mix things, and share our different practices with each other. And through that, new practices were created. Also, our dealings with the indigenous American as well, and them having knowledge and understanding of the plants and botany and botanical life that is indigenous to America. We share things with them and they share things with us. Um, and so there's a book called Mojo Working, the old African American hoodoo system, written by Katrina Hazard Donald. She's a PhD at Rutgers, and I would say she's an authority on the subject. And she says hoodoo is not to be confused with voodoo or voodoo or a West African religion, although hoodoo began as a religion and lost its religious status after the 1800s. It first emerged in southeastern United States when people from West African tribes of the Congo, Sierra Leone, and present-day Ghana came to America. So, like I said before, these three, multiple tribes within these three different nations coming together in one place, exchanging information and traditions and ideas, and new things become created, new things emerge from those ideas. And she also says in the book, she's talking about the cultural profile and the religions of these different nations, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and the Congo. And she said the cultural profile of these three regions is very different, and the religions are different. But after 1807, the African slaves are united under a common material culture, and hoodoo begins to emerge out of these three distinct African religious traditions. So it's really just pretty much saying that, our cultural exchange with each other began to create new ideas and new cultures. And so that's what we begin to see with hoodoo culture. And it's also called conjure as well. And so to give you kind of an example, this is the Congo Square in New Orleans, Louisiana. And this is from their website. And it says, besides the music and dancing, Congo Square would also provided enslaved Blacks with a place in which they could express themselves spiritually. This brief religious freedom on Sundays resulted in practice of voodoo ceremonies. So we can see that we brought our religious practices here because both the religion and, in this case of the Congo Square, the place is still there. And the types of voodoo ceremonies performed at Congo Square were very different from traditional voodoo. However, which gives you a glimpse as to how voodoo would evolve throughout the American South. And so this is healing herbs. And so hoodoo medicine, its roots go back centuries to the first enslaved Africans who brought knowledge of healing plants with them and even brought seeds with them on the slave ship. And so a lot of things that they thought were superstitious were actually just our knowledge of what certain plants did. Um, and you'll find how powerful that is even to this day. I mean, uh, and I'm all for modern medicine and modern science. But I also don't negate the fact that there are healing properties that come naturally. And this is something that we knew. This is something that we practice, something that we brought with us. And this is from Monticello.org, which is the museum that is preserving the history of Thomas Jefferson's plantation. And it says West African slaves brought not only herbal knowledge with them across the Atlantic, they also imported the actual seeds. Some were necklaces and wild licorice seeds as a protective amulet. Now you can see that has a superstitious, type of a superstitious type of thing to it, protective amulets and as you can see, evolves into, not only a tradition, but somewhat of a religion. It says captains of slave vessels used native roots to treat fevers that decimated their human cargo. Now, we know that them captains probably didn't know shit. They got that from us and the native and the indigenous Americans. But it says the ship's hellish holds were lined with straw that held seeds of African grasses and other plants that took root in the New World soil. Moreover, since the West African climate is similar to the climate in the mid-Atlantic region, slaves may have found counterparts to their own plant species. Certainly, the herb lore of captive Africans was expanded by contact with Indian tribes as well as by interactions with Europeans. As far as that last one, interactions with Europeans, I mean, they may have known a little something, but not much, because if you do the knowledge, we know that when Europeans got sick, they went to enslaved Africans and Native Americans when their own physicians couldn't cure them. That was what they did. If they had so much of this knowledge themselves, there would have been no need for them to do that. It says French missionaries in the 17th century, for example, noted the use of bonaset. So yeah, I mean, that's more bullshit that I don't give a fuck about. So let's go to this. So yeah, this is from a newspaper in Savannah, Georgia, had an article about how we brought seeds from Africa with us on the slave ship to America. And so this just says Africans brought with them from their homeland several types of seeds for planting, including okra, watermelon, black-eyed peas, sesame seeds, and cola nuts, which were originally a main ingredient in carbonated cola soft drinks. Africans ingested this nut because of high levels of caffeine. In addition, several other foods, while not originating in Africa, were highly utilized by Africans in Africa and the Americas. Some of these include greens such as kale, collards, and mustard greens, and sweet potatoes, not to be confused with yams, which grow in West Africa. The ways in which these foods were used still influence Southern and soul food cooking today. And so this shows you that we brought seeds with us. And just think about how powerful that is. We actually brought Africa to America physically by bringing seeds that were indigenous to the places that we lived, to the place that we were kidnapped and taken to. And this is just healing men and women. Slaves used many plants of the community. Okay, it says slaves used by many plants. Slaves used many of the plants used by a community of their white owners. Snake root, may, apple, red pepper, boneset, pine needles, comfrey, and red oak bark, to name a few. Slave healers understood the various preparations of popeweed and how to avoid its dangers while taking advantage of its curative properties. Sassafras root tea was a popular seasonal blood cleanser believed to search the blood for what was wrong and go work on it. Jimson weed was used for rheumatism, chestnut leaf tea for asthma, mint and cow manure tea for consumption. Even enslaved Africans who were midwives would have known and used herbs for female complaints and to ease childbirth. So slaves pervert their own doctors to white doctors. And that also goes to show you that although there is a superstitious aspect to hoodoo, there's also a science involved with it too. And that is clear to see with uh, us knowing, what these different plants, seeds, and what they did as far as how their healing properties within them actually. And so, that's pretty deep whenever you think about it. And so came from a book. It was written. This dude, it's called. First off, the book is called Hoodoo, Conjure, Witchcraft, and Other Superstitions by the American Negro. And it was this guy. He went around and interviewed around 1,600 people from different places in the South, from Maryland, the Carolinas, Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, about their experience with hoodoo and conjure and healing and all of this kind of stuff. And so he interviewed these people, I think, beginning in 1936. So if you could find a physical copy of this book, it's probably going to be around $10,000 from what I saw. But there is a digital copy online. If you want it bad enough, you'll be able to find it. But this is an excerpt from it, and it says he interviewed a brother, or in this case I think it was a woman, but and she's about conjuring and conjure people, and she says, would you say that the people who are engaged in this kind of work know much about it? And the woman says there's a lot of people working along this line that really don't know much about it. It's a lot of people along this line that know much more than I do, because all of us buy it out of the drugstore anyway. So as you can see, they started to sell this kind of stuff. That became a commercial aspect to it. You know what I'm saying? Just like anything in America, something starts off indigenous or natural, organically, and next thing you know, it's being sold in the store. And she said, buying from a hoodoo drugstore or hoodoo mail order firm or owning a hoodoo annual does not make you a doctor. Would you say that many of them make a good living out of this type of work? She says, yes, sir, white and colored, owning nice homes and don't do anything but that plenty nice cars and plenty servants. And so, like I said, as you can see, there became a commercial aspect to it. This is another instance of showing you how diseases were healed by using these plants and knowing what to do with them. With diseases such as malaria, typhoid, pneumonia, hookworm, dysentery, healers on the plantation were sought after. Healers didn't have the same respect. The physician did as far as whites go, though. If a patient of a physician died, the doctor was given credit that he did everything he could to save them. While healers would be accused of poisoning the white man. And in a lot of cases, they were poisoned, but good for them. And so this was something from, this is a book called Black Magic and White Terror, Slave Poisoning and Colonial Society in Early 19th Century. And I'll read what it says. This is an excerpt from it. It says, October 30th, 1826, the Provincial Court of Martinique delivered its final verdict on an unwieldy criminal case involving some 30 defendants, including slaves belonging to 9 different owners, several runaways with no known master, and 3 men of color. At the core of the conspiracy was a group of 5 slaves whose confession revealed a plot aimed at entirely ruining 2 plantations by poisoning livestock, slaves, and white masters themselves. And so one group stood accused of selling the deadly venomous powder used in the crimes, while another provided a poisonous syrup to be used on the slave master. So as you can see, we also weaponized it for our freedom. That's another powerful thing in itself, seeing the healing nature in it, and also how we can weaponize it to kill our masters and become free. Even after slavery, Hoodoo men were respected and feared in Black communities. And here again, the 5 volume set of stories that's called that I told you about, called Conjuration. No, it's called Hoodoo, Conjuration, Witchcraft, Root Work. Beliefs accepted by many Negroes and white persons. And this is an example. This excerpt is an example of how they were feared and respected, and a lot of that respect came from fear. And so this excerpt says, a neighbor lived not far from her house, was hunting squirrels in the squirrel season, and he passed near her home in the woods, and he saw she had a snake tied by the tail hanging up the tree, and she had cut its throat and catching the blood in a small bucket. She wasn't there, and he said to himself, damn you, I always heard you was a conjure, and now I know it. And that was about 40 years ago. She was a real conjure. Everybody was afraid of that woman, both white and colored. If she came to your house and asked you for anything, it paid you to give it to her. She said, you're gonna lose 10 times more than that. This is called putting a bad mouth on you. She went to a neighbor one day and asked for a watermelon, and he did not believe in conjuring. So he didn't give her the watermelon and lost his horse that night. And then he took off his hat to his woman, and I knew both of them. So that was the kind of respect that they had. They were afraid in a lot of cases. But, obviously this began to evolve. There were just like anything, there's healing properties in it, and there's, a negative aspect, so to speak. That's just a picture of a conjure woman from back in the day. And so this right here, this is Robert Johnson was a blues singer, and you'll start to see hoodoo in pop culture, right? And so according to the myth, Robert Johnson longed for fame and fortune, but he wasn't a very good guitarist. They actually said he was terrible. And so the myth goes, at the stroke of midnight, he walked down to the windswept crossroads at the junction of Highway 61 and 49 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, reciting an ancient incantation. He called upon the devil to make his deal. Well, so what happened after that, he became what's known as the father of blues, and some even say the father of rock and roll, Robert Johnson. But you'll start to see how Christianized things become, because this doesn't have anything to do with the devil. The crossroads was symbolized in a lot of cases Haitian voodoo with Papa Legba, and him being the intermediary between what they considered the spirit world and the physical world. Within a lot of these West African traditions, there was no such thing as the devil. But this began, to evolve as selling your soul to the devil at the crossroads. And here goes a movie. They even made a movie loosely based on the story of Robert Johnson with Ralph Macchio. And the brother right here in this video was playing Legba after Ralph Macchio was tuning his guitar at the crossroads. Like I said, you begin to see, hoodoo in pop culture, or pop culture references in hoodoo. And so more as far as the evolution and how it's viewed by people within the Christian community, even the Black Christians. This was an article that was written by the Department of Anthropology and the University of Kentucky, called Haiti's Pact with the Devil, Haitian Protestant Views of Voodoo and the Future of Haiti. And just to kind of show you a little bit of hypocrisy, this is to the right of that. Here is this was from Brown University, a article that was written about how important voodoo ritual was with the Haitian Revolution. It says the ceremony, the voodoo ritual that was taking place, the ceremony was officiated by Boukman, a Maroon leader, and voodoo priest from Jamaica, and voodoo high priestess. And so it goes to show that, you know, when African traditions become viewed in a Christian lens, they begin to add Christian concepts with them, such as the devil, when that doesn't make sense within the West African traditions, because there's no such thing as the devil. And here's another example of hoodoo within pop culture and blues culture. That picture is Hoodoo Man Blues by Junior Wells, considered one of the best blues albums of all time. And there's also, you know, stuff like Ma Rainey's Black Dust Blues, Robert Johnson's Stones in My Passway. There's even a song called Seven Sister Blues, recorded in 1931 by J.T. Funny Paper Smith, described taking a similar journey to get a conjure woman to get a curse removed. And so the lyrics were, they tell me 7 sisters in New Orleans, they can really fix a man up right. And I'm headed for New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm traveling both day and night. I hear them say the oldest sister looked like she just 21 and says she can look right in your eyes and tell you exactly what you done. They tell me they've been hung, been bled, and been crucified. But I just want enough help to stand on the water and rule the tide. It's bound to be 7 sisters because I've heard it by everybody else. Of course, I love to take their word, but I'd rather go and see for myself. And so he was talking about getting a curse lifted, you know what I'm saying, from a hoodoo woman or a conjure woman, you know. And finally, as they always do, Europeans have kind of appropriated everything that had to do with hoodoo culture. And some even began to say that hoodoo culture was not African American, and it was just as much European American as it was African American. But we know that that's not right and exact. So one of the biggest companies that deal in hoodoo products is Lucky Mojo, and the owner is Catherine Urenwold, and this is her to the right. You can see, you know, you can already see the appropriation there. You know what I'm saying? Like the shit that she has that has nothing to, in that store has nothing to do with West Africa, but the name of her store is Lucky Mojo. And there have been sisters, including people who are authorities on this subject, check her about, you know, her use of hoodoo culture to make money. And, you know, just like they all do, she's blocked them and made it seem as if she's not doing anything wrong. And she's even selling things that aren't even real. You know what I'm saying? Like she does, it's kind of wild. Like the Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Root Work Hour radio show. Like she's really co-opting everything that our people were killed for, things that our grandmothers had passed down, these stories, the superstitions, the myths, even the actual healing properties of the plants that we kept with us. You know what I'm saying? But that's all I kind of wanted to build with y'all about. If you, like I said, if you are interested in the subject even more, then I would suggest getting that book, Mojo Working. It's definitely worth it. But that's it for this presentation, man. I'm a holla. Peace.